Alright, how's it going, guys? We are back here, and today we are finally going to upgrade Crucible. So, our first step is we need to find Tantalite Ore. Now, there's another Crucible before we need to get to this, but we need to get it started. So, the first thing we're going to do is crush up a whole bunch of Tantalite Ore that I have mined, and I've got some crushed right here. And we're going to throw that in here, and we will actually put it ahead of the coal for right now. And now we are going to go, while that is processing, we're going to come over here to the other building. And while we were out picking up rocks also long ago, we found a whole bunch of these meteorite pieces. Well, these meteorite pieces are meteoric iron, which is a little bit higher melting point than regular iron. So if you look at it, it melts at 2011 instead of 1811. So it melts at the wrought iron temperature. Well, if we look at uses for it, in the Crucible, it'll smelt down to meteoric iron, but we can put that into the combination recipe with air, and we can turn it into meteoric steel. And that has a melting point of 2246, where meteoric iron or regular steel is 2046. So again, 200 higher. And that is going to be the first Crucible. Now, with the Crucible, there is multiple ways you can do this. So let me go through this. Our first one is the ceramic, which goes to 2500. Now, the old way of doing it was we would do vanadium for our next step, because vanadium melts at 2183 and it doesn't melt down until 2728. So that gives us 228 higher than what the ceramic one can do. But vanadium has become a little more rare. It's not that rare though. We've actually melted down a bunch of it over here. We actually have 18 vanadium plates. We could easily make a crucible and a mold out of it if we wanted to go that way. But with the meteoric steel, it doesn't melt down to 2807. So it is actually a little bit higher than the vanadium. Now, the next stage, you could go with chromium, which melts at 2180 and goes to 2725. That's another option. But the issue here is your next step is going to end up being iridium if you do the vanadium or the chromium. And iridium takes a level 4 pick to pick it up, which is not easy to do. So usually if you have to go that route, it's going to stay there, or you're going to end up using extra iridium to make an iridium pick to pick it up. But if we do the meteoric steel and it going to 2807, we can actually get to niobium, which is 2750. and see the chromium melts down at 2725, it can't get there. And the vanadium melts down at 2728, it can't get there. But the meteoric steel can just get there. So not till 2807, we need 2750. So we've got a nice buffer of about 50 degrees. And the nice thing is that niobium is a heavy material, so it's going to go slow anyways. And then our next step will be tantalum. And then after that, tantalum can melt down the tungsten. So then we'll get our tungsten crucible that way. So that is what we're going to be doing. If you have any more questions on that, let me know. We are going to come over here and we're going to use our steel crucible here, which we have a little bit of something in there. Oh yeah, I remember the way we set this up. The very last thing of steel is going to stay in there. So we're just going to leave that in there. And we need 48 of these because we need enough to make a crucible, which is 7, and a mold, which is 5. So that's 12 total units, and each one of these is 1/4 of a unit. So that's 48. And seeing as how we're going to have one left in here, we'll just throw a thing of iron in behind it, and that'll replace it. So now that will go down, and we should have some iron downstairs. We need to light this boiler up downstairs. Let's go ahead and grab us an iron ingot while we're here. And double check. Yes, we have water. We have water in the pipe. We're good to go. So now we will turn that on. And we will come up here and throw that piece of iron in there and turn that on. Now, hopefully, because this is going to turn off when there's, yeah, that's actually going to turn off when it's going to let it drop when there's nothing in there. So we actually need to reset this to drop 4 instead of 1 for this one. Because otherwise we're not going to get a full ingot's worth. We're just going to get a nugget's worth. Or a chunk's worth. And we don't want that. So set this to exact number of 4. So there we go. Emit exact stack size of 4. So it'll do those in quantities of 4 whenever that is empty. And we should end up with 12 plates out. So now, let's go over here. While that is doing its thing, and let's take a look at what we're getting out of this Tantalite ore. Because we've decided that we need niobium and tantalite, tantalum. So, in here we have Tantalite ore. We also have tiny purified niobium ore and tiny purified tantalum ore. Now, the tantalite, if we run it, well, let's first look at the sluice, our options to get out of it. Let's get to the actual, This should be it right here. There's tantalite. So our options are niobium, pyrolusite, and tantalum. So we only have 2 out of 8 chance for the tantalum, 3 out of 8 for the niobium, and 3 out of 8 for pyrolusite. The pyrolusite is nice. We need that for manganese for stainless steel, but not important for this. Now the tantalite, if we put that into the centrifuge, we will get the same thing. So we're going to want to run these through our centrifuge to get even more niobium and tantalum. But each one of these is a tiny piece, so for every 9, we have a unit's worth. So there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and there's almost 5. And then we have a little over 6 right here for that. So by the time we get done with that entire stack, we may have what we need just from washing it. Not going to guarantee it, but we should have pretty close, because we're already just about halfway there. So I'm going to let this finish washing up, and thanks to the magic of editing, we'll be back here when I've got everything processed and we can start cooking everything up. Alright, we're back for a quick minute, because we just had a meltdown because I made 2 mistakes. One, I set this to 4 and I only put in 1 iron ingot, so therefore it would never drop. So it would never say that the hopper was empty. So that melted down, but it only melted down because we didn't have anything in it. We have 4 meteoric iron in there, not steel, because I left this at 2046. Needs to be jacked up to 2246. So we're going to put the meteoric iron in there. We're going to take it back down to 1. And we're going to light this back up. And then we should actually get the meteoric steel out of it. So I'll be back. Alright, so it just melted. And it's ready to start pouring soon. Now, I started this back up because there's 4 in there. We have this set up for 1 at a time. We're also going 200 degrees higher, which is 200 degrees closer to meltdown. So hopefully you guys will learn from my mistake and set yours up properly. Alright, there we go. There's our first one. That is meteoric steel. Now, it's not going to be able to put another one in. And I don't have my... Okay, turned off. So we do not want it to blow. So we're going to go ahead and let it stay right there. And this should let everything get poured. Alright, we're now down below 2400. As it turns yellow when it's 100 degrees away from melting down. So we'll go ahead and let this run. And while it's doing that, because remember, the oxygen only infuses into the iron or pulls the carbon out of the iron once it is up to the proper pouring temperature. So there is our first meteoric steel. We're going to light this back up. We'll go downstairs and see what we have. So we should have at least got 2 out of that. Okay, there's steel, and we have a plate, iron plate. So we got 3 of the 4 out of there. Not real sure why we had 1 plate. That might be a leftover from last time. Let's go ahead and throw that back in. And now we only have 1 in there, so everything should run fine now. Let that run, and I will take you over here to the factory, and we will see how we're going on the niobium and tantalum front. Alright, so it looks like we're back on coal now. We've ran all of our tantalite. Our crusher is done. So we had about a stack and 15 or so. 17 crushed. So we ended up with 2 stacks and 35. And I've got it all divided up down here into stacks of 9. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. We only need 12. And remember, each one of these is worth 1.38. So it's a little more than 1 unit for each one of these stacks. Same with the tantalum, but with that, we only ended up with 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're 4 short on the tantalum. But the tantalite itself, as we said earlier, we can run it through the centrifuge, which gives us a guaranteed tantalum at 1.52 for each one that we run through. And then the tantalite dust itself will turn into a nugget of tantalum in the crucible. So we've got more than enough of what we need. I'm going to go ahead and take these and run them through our centrifuge here so we can get the rest of the parts we need out of it. I'm going to go ahead and take all of the niobium, which we will look at it real quick and see if we run it through the centrifuge, we will end up with niobium ore as well. And this is 1.25, this is 1, and this is 0.152. So we really should run it through and get the tiny refines, because that is going to end up giving us 15, 30, 0.456 rather than 250. So we'll go ahead and run the 9s that we have through here. We have to do them in sets of 9. And then the tantalum we have is going to give us tantalum as well. So we will run the 9s we have of those through here as well. So let's light that up. And I had already ran a bit of this. So we do have 1 niobium and 1 tantalum dust already. That's why we had a odd number in the sluice. Somehow we actually have like 33 tantalite, but out of that 33 we only ended up with 1 and 1 here. So just wanted to let you know what we already have on the wall, so your numbers won't be skewed by what I get out at the end, if you're keeping track of what we're actually putting in and taking out over here. So I will be back with you once we have all of this done. Alright, I wanted to bring you guys back here to show you that we are finally done. We should now have all of our meteoric steel. So there is 11. Just waiting on that last piece, which I'm sure by the time I get up here to grab it, it will have already dropped down, which it did. I knew I should have just been patient and waited at the box. So we've got 11 meteoric steel plates. And if we're lucky, yeah, I kind of thought that was the wrong color. For some reason, that last one got the tick before the oxygen got to it. So we're going to throw that one back in. Let's go make sure that that burning box gets turned on first. Okay, so it's got charcoal in there. And it just turned off. I just want to make sure that, because I've been doing a lot of messing around here, I want to make sure it wasn't full of ash and turned off a second early, because the timing of this thing has been great. So let's get her fired back up. And what I actually had started for was to show you guys that it does turn yellow while it's in doing the conversion from meteoric iron to meteoric steel, but not to worry, it will make it just fine. But we didn't get that option this time, and we've already got to wait for this to turn to steel. Let's go ahead and go down and grab another iron out. We can go ahead and leave it to the 2246. That just means it'll instantly pour. And I think we might actually need to add another comparator to this. It's doing really decent. I get most of my steel out of here. Just every now and then it wants to pop me out a wrought iron, or in this case a meteoric iron. But I've got everything in the centrifuge processing over there. So now let's go ahead and get our crucible made. So for this, we're going to need a wrench and a hammer. There's our meteoric steel crucible. And we are going to use the chrome burning box because we're going to be doing this manually from here on out. Now we just need to wait for that last piece of meteoric steel, which is turning right now. Just waiting on it to see. It turns yellow, but it still pops out. And there we go. There's our last piece. So we can now get our mold done. And we have to do this the old way. There is no shortcut for molds like there is with the clay. So we will need to use a chisel. And I do believe with this one it actually is chisel instead of wrench. Yes. So there we go. There's our mold. And it looks like I'm going to be making a chisel soon. So there's our quest complete for our meteoric steel mold. And there we go. We now have our meteoric steel mold. We can pop this out of here, plop that down there, and now we are ready, except we cannot have that go through there. That would be bad. So we're going to pop it right there, and we'll just throw this in there for now. We'll change all this back later. So now we just need to wait on our niobium to get done processing. So let's go see how it is doing. And then we can go ahead and get it done. Alright, so it's working on the Tantalite right now. We have tantalum, we have niobium, and pyrolusite. So it's going to take a little while for this to get done, because it has a lot to run. We do have the niobium and the tantalum ahead of the other stuff, so no worries there. So I am going to go ahead and leave you again, and we'll be back when we're ready to cook up these two crucibles. See you in a bit. Alright folks, we are back, and you will notice we have 12 and 22, and we have not even started on the small niobium or tantalum. That is just from shredding down what we've gotten out of the tantalite. So let's go ahead and grab 4 and 8, 8 and 4. That'll give us 12 and 12 of each. Let this stuff finish running, and we are going to go get us up to a tantalum crucible. And I also have been running the dryer this whole time, trying to get rid of all of that tungstic acid. And in doing so, we are up to 54 tungsten. So that will make us all kinds of smelters. But let's get down to business here. So all 12 of those in there. We will fire that bad boy up. And remember, we are going for niobium on this one, so the temperature we need to watch out for is 2750. So we've got a little while, because as you see, this ticks up rather slowly. So I will save you the agony of sitting here and waiting. We'll be back when it's about ready to pour. Alright, we are at 2650, 100 more degrees, and we will be ready to go. There we go, get that off of there. Did I miss a spot on this mold? I don't see one. What's the problem here? Mold, it makes what we need. Let's just clear these two away from it. And let's try that again. I hate it when it turns yellow like that. It scares the... Damn it! Oops. Try it again. Alright. Okay, we poured that time. I don't know what that glitch was, but something didn't like it. Let's get this hot thing out of here. Alright, so we now have 12 niobium plates. We can stick that in here. And we'll go ahead and put the other 5 down there. We will need our wrench again. And now we will need our chisel again. And I grabbed my multi-tool just in case. And there's our next step quest complete. Go ahead and chisel this one right in place. We ain't gotta pick it up. Now if I wouldn't have grabbed that chisel multi-tool, it would have broke one before we got complete. But seeing as how I grabbed it, it's just fine. So now we're doing tantalum. We're going to 3290, and the niobium can handle 34, so we won't be turning yellow on this one. So let's drop that in. Light the fires, and I'll be right back. Alright, we are at 3,031 I guess now. And we are going for 3290. Just wanted to show you with this chromium burning box we have, we're only going up about 7 to 8 degrees each second. So yeah, this is taking a little bit of time. Alright, we are there. Turn it off. Pour our tantalum. And now we can go put that together. Hammer in the middle. Wrench there. And there is our tantalum crucible. And we will have to use this one. There we go. So now we have the Great Crucible. Let's go look and see here. Stone Age Crucible, that is those. Measure, automate. Okay, must not be in that quest line. Steam Age. Pipes. It's not in that quest line. Let's see. Roast it. Mix it up. 4 mixers. I already did that. Didn't count. Upgrade your crucible. That is the chromium one that I was telling you guys about. And then that's the iridium one that I was telling you guys about. But we went this way with the meteoric steel. And then the niobium. And there is the tantalum. So the only thing I'd say that's missing here is the fact that you can do vanadium. It's just very dangerous to do that way. But that is a niobium crucible to tantalum done. And we can go ahead and rip all these out of here. Which, don't think of them as ripping them out like I just said. Think of them as pushing them in. Because even though we used 5 units to create this and chiseled out the whole center of it, it's still worth 5. If we feel we don't need a niobium crucible, we can scrap it, throw it in the shredder, and scrap it on back down. Now, at this point, I will suggest to you, you do not make a tungsten crucible to take its place. Tantalum is a little less dense than tungsten. So your tantalum density is 12,953, where your tungsten is 14,972. The denser the crucible, the more heat it takes to heat it up. That's why these crucibles have slowly gotten slower as we've upgraded in the amount of heat that it gets. Now, our next step will be going to a tantalum hafnium carbide, because that is only 7,098 in density versus the straight tantalum of 12,953, but it does not melt down to 5328. So this will be the next one we want to go to, but we are going to stay right where we are currently. So I'm going to melt down this tungsten. I'm not going to make you guys wait again. I will go ahead and get a few, well, probably most of what I have here turned into plates, so we can get started on making aluminum next. That is our next grand adventure. This unlocks a lot of great things for us, though. We can actually set up what I call a alloy smelter, which is a mixer and a smelter put together that will make our alloys without using a crucible. You'll still use molds. I will show that to you in a few weeks. It also unlocks our ability to make buells for making circuits, which will unlock the ability to store power once we get plastic. So we will need to make our distillation tower soon. And the best thing is it allows us to start making aluminum, which is needed for our filters. So that will be the next thing we work on. So I will see you guys in the next prep stream in a few days, and we will start prepping everything for our aluminum processing video. Now, just so you know, even though I have upgraded crucibles, I will only be using that tantalum one when it's absolutely necessary, because as I was showing with the tungsten and the tantalum densities, the ceramic one is 636. It is so much better. It takes so little heat to heat that thing up compared to all the rest. Alright, so our centrifuge is done running. We're still running this, so that means that our shredder is done. So we can go ahead and, if it was possible, turn out the lights for the night. And we are done. So I will see you guys later. Don't forget to hit those buttons and do those things.